Hello and welcome to WilmingtonBiz Talk. I'm Cece Nunn. I'm the real estate reporter at the Greater Wilmington Business Journal and assistant editor. And we're here today with Ryan Crecelius of Nest Realty and Kelsea Hertzler of the Allsup Group of Coldwell Banker Seacoast Advantage. And we're talking about the housing market, which has just been booming this year and last year. And so first I wanted to start off with you, Ryan, asking you a question, and then we'll move to you, Kelsea. How would you characterize the current real estate market in Wilmington?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on today. Happy to at least offer some advice, assistance, or whatever we can. Obviously, I guess to answer your question, the market it's extremely competitive. It's competitive in a lot of different ways we probably haven't seen. When, I guess maybe 10, 12 years ago, and the market was really rocking. It's competitive, but competitive from a standpoint where there's so much more competition from out of town, which is quite unique. Obviously, there's a lot of folks locally that want to make moves and move up or down, but competitive. That's my one word.
How about you, Kelsea?
Yeah, I definitely agree. So everyone's kind of saying the same thing, but it's so true that we have such short supply and such high demand. Obviously, we're seeing a huge influx of people moving here, especially with COVID. People are able to work remotely now. So they're leaving big cities where it's so expensive and moving down here, and it's just crazy.
Okay. And Kelsea, what are some of the trends that you're seeing that, people might not even know about when it comes to how busy the market is?
Yeah, so one big trend that we're seeing is contingent home sales, meaning that buyers are having to first sell the home that they're living in before they're actually able to close on the house that they're buying. And it's becoming more and more common. It's directly related to the low inventory that we're seeing. And it's not something that used to kind of like happen just because sellers of the homes wouldn't accept that, but it's just becoming so common that it's just something that's happening more.
And so so people are having to they're having to go ahead and sell their house, right, before they can buy one of their own. And so they're having to like rent places to live while they're
living. Well, people aren't wanting to actually list their homes until they find one because the market is so crazy. People don't want to list their homes and then sell it and have nowhere to live. And exactly, they don't want to have to find a rental and do all that. Okay. A couple more trends that we're seeing. First of all, interest rates are going up. We know that they were at an all-time low for a while. They are now going up and they're going up pretty quickly. So it's a great time, again, to try and get in there and buy a home. Another big trend is flex space. Of course, everybody works from home now. People are home all the time. They want more room to play, more room for an office. So those are some of the big trends that we're seeing right now.
How about you, Ryan? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with everything she's mentioned there for sure. What we're seeing here with the agents here at Nest, and I'm sure all the agents in our area for sure, but buyers and obviously their agents are hopefully facilitating this and sort of offering this advice, but they're having to get extremely creative on the buyer side. Things like having your home inspector with you when you go to see the house the first time. Again, typically the due diligence process, you have 2-3 weeks to do your inspections, but right now there's so much multiple offer situation happening, and again that competition. People are being overly prepared, which isn't totally bad. I think it's actually a great way to make things a little bit more efficient. So that's one trend I'm noticing that I've never really seen before. Past that, deposits and how those are being handled with due diligence fees and escalating deposits. Again, we'll give you a week, but then after the week, we're going to ramp that up to an additional earnest money or whatever, to not get too far into the weeds, but similar to how we see a lot of commercial properties bought, there's escalations throughout the process of your due diligence, which is happening more and more because the sellers know that they're kind of pulling the levers. So they want to make sure the buyers are really in it to win it, and not just hoping to get something under contract to find a reason to back away from it when something better comes along. So again, I guess to boil that down, more skin in the game.
Okay. And I talked to you, Ryan, and then to Paul of your group, Kelsea, about people buying houses when they haven't even stepped foot in them. Is that something that, Kelsea, that you're seeing too?
Yeah, absolutely. More and more, again, like especially with people that are moving here, they're not able to, once a house comes on the market, if they're up in New York or wherever they are, they're not able to wait until that weekend to fly down and see the house because the home won't be there anymore. So if this is their dream home, we can, be on FaceTime, shooting videos within an hour. And it's such a great way to see a home with technology, and it really feels like you're there. We had a family see a home. They live in Minnesota a couple months ago. They saw a home through our marketing, like one of our homes links, and they loved the home. And that night we were under contract with them just from doing a FaceTime video tour.
Oh, and then what's been your experience, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll mirror exactly her comments on that front. I mean, I'll be 38 next week. I started in real estate when I was like 21, so I was like a baby, I felt at the time. But the technology from when I started till now, it's just so different. Because I mean, even 10 years ago, all you could get is a photo slideshow. That was your virtual tour. Now you have 3D tours, you have FaceTime, obviously videos, and just the internet technology to allow us to send these big files quickly, or just doing it live, like Kelsea mentioned with FaceTime. I think it makes the process a little bit smoother and more efficient, and not as crazy as it sounded 10 years ago to buy a property, a sight unseen. I mean, they've seen the pictures, but now virtually you can accomplish a lot of that without spending a weekend driving down if you're out of town. Or even what we're seeing too is everybody's seeing is even if you're across town, you're working, you don't have time to make that showing, or you can't get the showing on your lunch break. So even hours is important. So these technologies are helping us facilitate the buyers feeling a little bit more comfortable, and the sellers too, because a lot of times when you're selling to somebody sight unseen, they're always a little hesitant. They haven't even seen it yet, or the husband hasn't seen it yet, or the wife, or whatnot. I think, again, it's not as crazy as it used to seem.
And how do you go about when you're doing, like, for example, when you're doing like a FaceTime video of a house? Do you just like walk them through each room? Are you showing them like if there's a little defect, or say, see here, this little defect, but not a big deal? Like, how do you do that?
Well, I'll jump in on that really quick, because from my personal experience on some individual sales I've worked on over the past 6, 8, 12 months, or the stories I hear from the agents when they're coming in the door here, a lot of times they find a friend, family friend, it could be the in-laws. They'll go with the agent to kind of reassure what you're telling them on the phone. But as far as the process goes, whether there's somebody there or not, they basically just treat you like you're Super Mario and say, go into this room, go into that room, go up, go down. And again, you're just giving them a tour, but you're just kind of you're the tool, and they just tell you where to go. And what's important to them may not be important to other buyers or sellers. So yeah, it varies.
Right.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Kelsea. Sorry.
Yeah, I totally agree with Ryan. And then as far as like seeing defects and things, I mean, I treat the video tours just like I would an in-person tour. So if I notice water damage, I'm going to tell them through the phone as well. And of course, that's part of building trust with your buyers.
And then have you ever come across a situation where people were disappointed when they did buy something after only having a virtual tour, or have you not run across that, or how's that gone?
I guess from our side of things, honestly, people are just happy to get into the house. They feel better that it's theirs. And then there's always something wrong. Houses are living, breathing things. There's no perfect house. Even new construction, there's always some weird thing. But yeah, I'm not noticing or hearing that people are too dissatisfied. It's a little scary. I mean, let's be honest. But I think for the most part, people are happy that they have the opportunity to buy it, and it fits their criteria for the most part. If you can hit 90% of the check boxes right now with the inventory that we don't have, I think people are pretty happy.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about, how you deal with the inventory levels being so low when it comes to being a realtor and wanting to find houses for your clients, but just struggling to find, houses that are out there that don't get snapped up so quickly. You want to start, Kelsey?
Yeah, sure. So obviously inventory is a huge issue, and this just speaks to having a good agent that knows trends and prospecting. So not only calling through neighborhoods, but our team really takes advantage of social media. We actually just closed on a house that we found through Facebook. We simply just made a post about things that our buyers were looking for, and it, appeared on someone's Facebook that didn't even have their home listed. It was just something that they had talked about, and they decided to go through with it. And agents being on top of it and getting creative.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'd agree with all those points for sure. And I think the value of having a good, creative, and motivated buyer's agent can be invaluable in 100 different ways. Because I mean, even things like I always suggest to buyers, or when we're talking with our agents here, I think, especially for somebody that's out of town, we'll kind of go with that example. Start with the neighborhood. I was always taught from an investment perspective, if you're looking to find properties for rentals or whatever, be really good at the mini market. So maybe you want to be really seasoned in Landfall or parts of Porter's Neck or wherever it is in town. That way, when something comes on the market, it's like red alert. Like we're going to run over there. We're going to get in, whether it's a virtual tour or not. But if you know the neighborhood is where you really want to be, whether it's school district or whatever it is, there's some creative ways to sort of, as they say, beat the streets, to find those neighbors in that neighborhood or owners to facilitate a deal being put together. I mean, it sometimes it might not even come on the market. But if the seller's willing to sell, or it's not on the market yet. If they want to put it on the market, you might have a buyer there ready to go. So now you're sort of helping both parties. They're willing to sell and they really want to buy. So again, it's just having conversations, building relationships, and at the end of the day, sometimes it's getting really creative. Because if you're waiting for the market, if you're waiting for the listing to come on the MLS, then that's all you're doing, you're probably way behind the 8 ball, because it's really competitive out there. So you need to have somebody that can facilitate that type of a transaction in a creative way.
Does that include seeking out people who might potentially want to sell their home, or who are in neighborhoods where it's a very competitive price point? Do you kind of prospect, I guess, to see if people might haven't thought about selling their homes but might want to? I know I've gotten texts before from realtors saying, hey, have you thought about selling your home? Do you guys do that?
Yeah, well, I guess traditionally you call it farming, right? A neighborhood, and you stay in front of them long enough, somebody will call you back. But now with technology and social media, like Kelsey said, there's a lot of really creative and I think good ways to have those conversations to where someone doesn't feel like you're being slick or over promising, because that happens too, unfortunately. But there's a lot of ways to get those conversations started.
Okay. And we kind of talked about this earlier as far as out of town buyers versus in-town buyers. What are you seeing as far as the rate of in-town buyers? Kelsey, I don't know if you want to start?
Sure. So do you mean comparatively out of town to in town?
Right.
It's I would say about half and half. And what we're seeing a lot is people who are currently renting. So they sold their home, in Chicago or wherever, and then they're currently renting down here. That happens a lot. And we see that a lot through our marketing. People will sign up for our homes list and, they're like, we're renting here right now. We're trying to get to know the area. And we're looking to buy within a year, when our lease ends.
Okay. What do you think, Ryan? What have you been seeing?
Yeah, and it's tough to put like a perfect percentage on it. Again, everybody's situation is a little bit different. I've got lots of friends who have growing families. They're on their second or third kid or whatever it is, to where they just need more space. I mean, let's face it, a lot of people have sort of been cocooned in their house for a year almost, and the walls seem a little tight, so they just maybe need more space. So again, that's the in-town buyer. But we had I think I mentioned in the article that you wrote last week, we had a guy come in from Manhattan, walked right into our office and said, we had a $1.5 million listing on Airlie Road. by any standard, that's an expensive house. But to somebody that's in DC, New York, even Raleigh and Charlotte, it's not like incredibly crazy, especially not Manhattan. So again, we're hearing this stories pretty rampantly around town. I'm sure all agents are. So again, I think it's just really, I kind of put it like this to sum that up. We're kind of like, I call it Charleston Junior, Charleston, South Carolina, where, they're probably 10, maybe 15 years ahead of us as far as pricing, congestion, all that. We're still slightly undiscovered here, which is good and it's bad, because a lot of us that have been here for 15, 20 years, we appreciate feeling like we have this secret little crystal coastal city. But again, that's slowly definitely changing, and people are discovering that we are a really good value. And you combine that with low inventory and still traditionally very low rates, it creates a situation where, people want to be here.
Okay. And speaking of prices, what are the price points that are the most desirable now?
I'd say, the biggest price points right now are between 200 and 350. And those are, slowly going up and up. And those are the hardest to get into. Those are the homes that we're having, 6, 7, 8 competing offers.
Can people even find a home under $200,000 at all? Is it, or like a house, or is it more like you might be able to find a condo?
In Wilmington, you might be able to find a condo.
Right. And do you see the prices continuing to go up, home prices?
Absolutely. Yeah. Until there's more inventory, there are, the same amount of houses and people continuing to move here. And I don't see prices going down anytime soon.
Okay. And when you talk about inventory, you're talking about existing and new homes?
Homes for sale.
Homes for sale. So what about the new home construction? Does that seem to be keeping pace with demand? Can you tell in the new home neighborhoods you guys have worked in?
Yeah, I'd chime in on that. I think if you go north or south, Brunswick County, Pender County, Hampstead, et cetera, you'll definitely get a little bit more bang for your buck, but not like extreme amount, but you're getting more inventory too. New Hanover right now there's just so much dirt not available and or it's been developed. So from just a supply demand, that's just an issue that's just never going to change. So that's going to force the prices up. Obviously here in New Hanover County, Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach area, which Carolina Beach is, it's going to be Beverly Hills before you know it, seems like. But as far as new construction, I think builders are trying to keep pace as much as they can, but they can only do that with dirt. And we just listed 100 and some acres up in Rocky Point, and that is snowballing into a much bigger transaction than we could have thought, because there's so much builder developer interest. So we're talking with neighboring parcels, because that's how limited the space is to build. But again, to answer the question, it's both sides of it. New construction and resales are extremely busy.
All right. And then what do you think about, since you mentioned the outer, areas outside Wilmington, but still in the Wilmington region, what do you think about affordable housing? What can we do to provide more affordable housing in Wilmington?
It's definitely a hard question. So, the elements that go into this are the cost of lumber and the cost of land. These things are both extremely expensive right now. So there are trusts that can be put together and passed through the county that could be used for multiple different sources of funding. So those are the types of things that can be done, but it's really a hard question. And it's a huge issue that people are having right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty in-depth problem we have here. There's no perfect solution. I think if there was one, it would have happened. But like the Cape Fear Housing Coalition, they're a great resource and an advocate for, finding ways to fill that void or that need. Again, the dirt or the land problem in New Hanover County is just it's paramount. So it could boil down to things like some rezoning things. It could be a public-private partnership, incentives with developers and builders. I mean, there's a laundry list of things that you could potentially tackle it with. But again, Cape Fear Housing Coalition has a ton of resources to hopefully find those answers and make something happen.
Okay. And for my last question, I wanted to ask you guys, I'll start with you, Kelsey. What are your predictions for the rest of this year when it comes to the housing market?
I just think it's going to continue, maybe continue, to go up just like it is right now. And so are interest rates. So I would say, again, I mean, we've been saying this as agents, this is the time to try and get in and buy. Interest rates are going up and so are home prices.
Right. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I'd agree. 2 a.m, I wake up and try to read some economic type forecasts and locally, nationally, whatever. But I think, in a weird way, Wilmington is insulated a little bit. Again, prices are obviously going up. But I think at least for a reasonable period of time, we have a supply demand issue, and that's basic economics. If we don't have a lot of supply, demand is going to continue to go up, especially where we are on the coast. And with the interest rates being as low as they are, and if they stay even in that ballpark, I think the rest of the year is going to be a pretty hot housing market.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kelsey and Ryan, for appearing on Wilmington Biz Talk. It's a program we have every Thursday at noon, and you can also catch it on YouTube. It's rebroadcast on YouTube. And it's also provided as a podcast on various podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. So we will see you again next week. And thanks again to our speakers.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.